It's easy to become jaded when it comes to archaeology these days. Most of the media hype in this field seems to fall at the feet of conspiracy theories and secret lost civilizations. But despite the trends on social media, there are still jaw-dropping, legit discoveries happening every year, and 2023 was no exception. In the past 12 months, teams have discovered entirely new languages, gold-coated mummies, hidden swords, and sunken temples, which only goes to show that you never have to look to the fringes for a little excitement when it comes to digging up the past. The ancient city of Hattusa has been enthralling archaeologists for decades. It was once the capital of the Turkish Empire back during the Bronze Age, over 3,500 years ago, and it's the source of the largest collection of ancient records and literature in the world. Because of this rich history, it's been a UNESCO World Heritage Site for nearly 50 years. Archaeologists at Hattusa have uncovered more than 30,000 engraved tablets, mostly written in a proto-language known as cuneiform. Cuneiform is the earliest known writing system. It's a collection of wedge-shaped characters that are used in several early languages around ancient Mesopotamia. Most of the tablets around Hattusa are in Hittite, which is the oldest Indo-European language. Other languages have been discovered etched in cuneiform, such as Palaic, Luwian, and Hattic. These tablets are priceless in what they have to teach us about past civilizations. Mostly, they are records of the everyday life of the time, merchant lists and societal records. However, this year, an entirely new language was discovered at this well-trod site, and no archaeologist or anthropologist has ever seen it before. On one of the newly unearthed tablets, there was a cult ritual recorded in a foreign language never before seen. The scientists at the site believe that it describes a religious practice that was already ancient at the time it was etched into the tablet, well over 4,000 years ago. We do know it was written by people that spoke and wrote in the Hittite tradition, but the words on the tablet are taken from an ancient saying from the Kalashma region, where people lived to the northwest borderlands of Hattusa, the equivalent to their Wild West. It was a less civilized frontier region, and apparently some popular idioms stuck and were recorded by the ancestral Turks. Experts have no idea what the tablet says exactly, but the more they dig, the closer they are to uncovering the secrets of societies that we're yet to dream of. Just before we continue with today's video, have you ever wondered how to tackle dry skin during the winter? Well, our sponsor, the UFO 3 by Foreo Sweden, has the answer. Look, I'm not exactly a guy who's ever been big on skincare, but this is a fantastic device. All the stuff from Foreo is, honestly, so it's a weird integration. When Foreo first came to me, they were like, do you want to work with us? And I'm like, I'm not a beauty influencer, but they sent me the stuff and I love it. They keep sending me these new skin gadgets, and this one, the UFO 3, is cool. In just 2 minutes, this device increases skin moisture by 126%, which makes it clinically proven to reduce the look of wrinkles in just 1 week. And look, I'm getting on a bit. I'd like to reduce my wrinkles. Why not? Plus, with winter, they've got the thermotherapy, and it's incredible. Not only does it soften your skin for optimal hydration, but it's a bit of a warm hug for your face during those chilly months, perfect for combating dryness and giving your skin a youthful glow. But there's more. UFO 3 features a range of LED lights, each with its own superpower. From fighting signs of aging to soothing stressed skin, it's got it all. And it's very easy to use. Download the Foreo for You app, put the mask on, select your treatment, and you're good to go. Now here's the deal. Hit the link in the description below. You'll get 21% off the UFO 3, but that's only for the first 100 customers only. So what are you waiting for? It's a fantastic gift, or perfect for yourself. Click that link below. Let the skincare revolution begin. Thanks to Foreo for sponsoring, and now back to today's video. This September, archaeologists off the coast of Egypt, near the Bay of Abu Qir, Alexandria, discovered a temple dedicated to the goddess Aphrodite. If that gives you pause, since Aphrodite is famously a Greek goddess and not an Egyptian deity, this is your regular reminder that Alexander the Great, a Greek, invaded and overtook Egypt back in 332 BC. That time of Greek rule over Egypt is known as the Ptolemaic period, and it lasted for 300 years, starting with Alexander the Great and ending with Cleopatra when Rome finally invaded and won. But regardless of what empire is historically in charge of Egypt, Alexandria is the main port city on the coast. But it hasn't always been. Long before Alexander ever landed in Africa, there was another international port city just off the coast of where Alexandria and its 6 million people reside. Thonis Heracleion. You might not have heard of that one though, because it sank into the sea over 2,000 years ago. 101 BC was when a deadly combination of earthquakes, flooding, and rising sea levels liquefied the soil that the city was built on, and the once great trading hub just sank. Archaeologists have been diving and bringing up artifacts since its discovery in 2002, just recently, among the majority of Egyptian materials, a Greek temple dedicated to the goddess of love was discovered at a depth of just 10 meters or 32 feet below the surface. The temple to Aphrodite dates back to the 5th century BCE, when Thonis Heracleion was Africa's gateway to the Mediterranean. That sea connected a bevy of ancient civilizations, and if you were a historic importer of grain, wine, or any other valuable trade good, Thonis Heracleion was the international bazaar to sell from. Ships from all over Europe, the Middle East, and Africa had a city of thousands of people who made their living in trade goods, which is why Aphrodite's temple was already established. It was a place for Greeks already making a home working in Africa. We know the temple was Greek because of the imported goods, devotional items, and an array of 5th century dated Greek bronze imports, as well as the style of building matching Greek temples at the time. If you're interested in other finds from the Lost City, including 5-meter tall statues and countless everyday artifacts, you currently see remnants of the Sunken City on display at the Grand Egyptian Museum in Giza near Cairo. 50 years ago, in the Judean desert, in En-Gedi Oasis National Reserve, Israel, a curious inscription was discovered in an obscure cave hidden in a cliff overlooking the Dead Sea. A stalactite protruding from the cave's roof was discovered with ancient Hebrew writing carved into it. The words were incomplete and hard to decipher, as nearly 2,000 years have passed since they were originally carved. This year, researchers returned to the site to get a better look at it. A team from the University of Jerusalem entered the cave with the hope of using multispectral photography to uncover any semblance of words no longer visible to the naked eye, as to better understand the reason for these words being carved into a cave's formation in the first place. While working on that photography job, the team members noticed what looked like a stack of old leather books jammed far into a crevice in the cave's wall. Upon closer inspection, they realized they weren't books at all, but the leather scabbards of 4 1900-year-old Roman swords. The swords were in amazing condition, impeccably preserved thanks to the naturally dry desert climate and a clever hiding spot free from wind, water, or human disruption. The Roman booty included 3 spatha, aka long swords, which were all between 60 to 65 centimeters, that's 23 to 25 inches, and 1 short-ringed pommel sword at 45 centimeters, or 17 inches. All 4 weapons still had their carved wooden handles, scabbards, and some leather and wood accessories that belonged to them. The university teams involved believe they were hidden in the cave during a time of Jewish rebellion against the Roman Empire, with the purpose of being used again when it was safe to extract them. Dr. Aiton Klein, director of the Judean Desert Survey Project, had this to say on the storied discovery. Obviously, the rebels did not want to be caught by the Roman authorities carrying these weapons. We are just beginning the research on the cave and the weapon cache discovered in it, aiming to try and find out who owned the swords and where, when, and by whom they were manufactured. We will try to pinpoint the historical event that led to the caching of these weapons in the cave and determine whether it was at the time of the Bar Kokhba revolt in 132 to 135 CE. The swords are currently in the care of the Israel Antiquities Authority for further research and preservation. This year has been a busy one for archaeologists worldwide, but if there's a reward for the most ancient discovery in human history, Zambia wins that one. Recently, near Kalambo Falls, near the Zambia-Tanzania border, archaeologists unearthed wooden logs preserved deep beneath the airtight clay of a river. The nearly petrified logs displayed obvious cuts and markings from hand tools, notched together to create a right angle, clearly indicating an intentional, tool-hewn structure. If finding an old log cabin doesn't sound that exciting to you, it might raise your eyebrows when you realize that the pickled logs are nearly 500,000 years old. The teams involved used luminescence dating to hone in at 476,000 years old, if you want to keep score. This is a fascinating discovery because it means that possibly another species that lived before Homo sapiens built this structure. Our species, as far as we know, has only been around for 300,000 years, meaning the use of tools and construction by humans and their close relatives have been practiced far longer than previously thought. Before this discovery, the oldest human-built shelters were unearthed in France and were dated 400,000 years ago. Professors involved in the dig remind us that it could still be something crafted by our earliest Homo sapien ancestors, but we have yet to discover human remains that old of our own species. Which means this home probably wasn't built by us, but more likely by one of our extinct close relatives of the Middle Pleistocene, such as Homo erectus, Homo naledi, or Homo bodensis, since all of these species were living in Africa at the time. Professor Larry Barham of the University of Liverpool had this to say about the find, quote, This find has changed how I think about our early ancestors. They used their intelligence, imagination, and skills to create something they'd never seen before, something that had never previously existed. This particular find is possibly a dock set near the water for fishing, possibly even transportation if our ancient relatives ever used rivers as a means of transportation via proto-watercraft such as simple rafts. But such discoveries still yet to be found. Just ahead of the construction of the Maya Train Railroad project, archaeologists were called in when a palace-like structure was discovered near the ruins of the 1,500-year-old city of Cabar near the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. The ruins of Cabar are already an established research site, complete with low stone pyramids, arches, and altars, and plenty of material culture from the Mayan peoples that lived and worshipped there. However, the slow work of clearing away ages of overgrown vegetation is exactly how more of this ancient city is being discovered. These newly studied palace structures are the first residential buildings found among all the temples and religious monuments. Scientists are still unsure of the exact date of the estate living spaces, but estimates are around 250 to 500 CE, near the time that the city of Cabar was founded. The building spanned 26 meters, that's 85 feet, and was elaborately decorated with carvings of birds, feathers, and beads. There was an elaborate facade on the palace, complete with a pillared portico out front. The inclusion of this intricate work may have been an intentional connection between the residents of these estates and the Mayan gods, which were often associated with gold, birds, and adornments. By featuring these symbols and items of value around the palaces, it possibly helped legitimize the special status of the people who lived among this holy city. It's being called a palace complex because while it's uncertain if actual royalty ever resided there, the people that did were elites. The artisan work was well beyond the common person's home of this period, proof that residential buildings that housed the once thriving Mayan population of the time had some really swanky real estate options. The ancient Egyptians had been practicing mummification long before anyone from the West ever learned of the practice. It wasn't until the 5th century BCE that the Greek historian Herodotus first recorded any documentation on the practice. But long before his pen hit paper, ancient Egyptians had been perfecting the practice for thousands of years. Mummification is a practice that actually degraded in quality over time, with some of the best preserved specimens all hailing from the earliest periods when preservation relied more on completely drying out the bodies instead of removing organs, embalming, and then wrapping them in soaked linens. In January of 2023, one of these earlier mummies was discovered, surprisingly well preserved and coated in gold leaf. A team of archaeologists digging at the necropolis of Saqqara near Cairo discovered a man named Hattusa who had died circa 2300 BCE. His remains were discovered in a tomb shaft 15 meters or 49 feet deep. His limestone sarcophagus weighed 45 tons, the lid alone weighing 5, and when the lid was removed, what lay inside was a specimen rather outside the norms. His arms and legs were wrapped individually, not held close to the body, and wrapped as one unit, like most later dated remains are. This gave him a more lifelike appearance in death. To match the illusion of seeming more alive, his body was completely covered in gold leaf, and his face and hair painted on to appear more like a buried doll than what we think of as a classic mummy. Hattusa is the oldest non-royal mummy ever discovered. His role in society is not yet known, but to receive this level of burial, he certainly had a lot of influence. The ancients believed gold was holy and what the god's skin looked like. Being coated in gold was the kind of end-of-life treatment that only the wealthiest classes could afford. Beside the gold leaf and lifelike body arrangements, the tomb he was in was also adorned with life-size statues depicting family members and staff to assist him in the afterlife. Their bodies were painted in a reddish-brown pigment closer to the actual skin tone of people living at the time, so, well, Heck really stood out.